High in the Andes Mountains, far above the lines we draw on maps, there is a place of legend. It is a castle, but not like any you have ever imagined. This one floats. It rests on a massive, flat-topped peak, a stone island in a sea of clouds. For most of the year, it is completely hidden from the world below. The clouds wrap around it like a thick, white blanket. Only on the clearest of days, for a few fleeting moments at sunrise, can you see its silhouette, a dark shape against a golden sky. This is the castle of Ethelgard, a name that whispers of forgotten times. It is a place that for centuries was thought to be nothing more than a myth, a story told to children. Getting there is a journey for the brave. There are no roads, no marked trails. You must climb through dense, mist-filled forests. You navigate treacherous mountain passes where the air is thin and cold. The local people have stories about the path. They say it is protected by ancient spirits. They speak of strange lights seen in the sky around the peak. For a long time, these stories were enough to keep people away. The castle remained undisturbed, a secret held by the mountains. It was a ghost story, a legend, but one that turned out to be astonishingly real. The journey itself is part of the magic, a climb into another world. Imagine for a moment, breaking through the final layer of clouds. 1 minute you are in a grey, damp world of mist. The next, you step into brilliant sunshine. Below you is a solid ocean of white. And there, in front of you, is the castle. It is built from a dark volcanic rock that seems to drink in the sunlight. Its towers reach up into the deep blue sky. It doesn't look like a fortress built for war. It looks more like a sanctuary, a place of peace built to be as close to the heavens as possible. The first sight of it takes your breath away. It feels impossible, like stepping into a dream. The location itself tells a story. Why would anyone build a castle in such an inaccessible place? It wasn't for defense against armies, as no army could ever reach it. It wasn't for controlling trade routes, as it stands far from any known path. The reason, we now believe, was something far more profound. It was about perspective. It was about living in a place that was separate from the noise and chaos of the world below. Ethelgard was a statement. It was a testament to a people who chose to live differently, to touch the sky and watch the world turn from a distance. It was a kingdom built on a cloud, a wonder of the ancient world. Every great structure begins with a single idea. Ethelgard was born from the mind of a man known as King Alaric the Stargazer. He was not a king in the traditional sense. He didn't rule over vast lands or command great armies. He was the leader of a small, peaceful community of artisans, astronomers, and philosophers. Alaric believed that the heavens held great wisdom. He spent his nights charting the stars, convinced that by living closer to them, his people could achieve a higher state of understanding and peace. He saw the world below as a place of conflict and distraction. His dream was to create a retreat from that world. Finding the perfect location took years. Alaric and his followers explored the highest peaks of the mountain range. They were searching for a place that was stable, defensible in its remoteness, and had a connection to the sky. Legend says that Alaric was guided by a falling star. He followed its trail for weeks until it led him to the great flat-topped mountain. The peak was a perfect natural platform. It was vast enough to support a community and surrounded by sheer cliffs that made it a natural fortress. This, he declared, would be their new home, a place where they could live in harmony and study the cosmos in peace. The construction of Ethelgard is a marvel of ancient engineering. The people who followed Alaric were not just dreamers, they were master stonemasons and builders. They used the dark volcanic rock of the mountain itself. They carved great blocks from the peak and shaped them with incredible precision. They used no mortar. The stones were fitted together so perfectly that you cannot slip a knife blade between them. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, is what has allowed the castle to withstand centuries of wind, rain, and high-altitude weather. It was a slow, painstaking process. A whole generation was born and grew old during its construction. It was not just a castle, it was a self-sufficient world. The builders designed ingenious systems to collect and store rainwater. They carved vast cisterns deep into the rock, ensuring a year-round supply of fresh water. They also discovered caves within the mountain peak. These caves maintained a constant cool temperature. They were perfect for storing food. They created terraced gardens on the mountainside just below the main plateau. Here they grew hardy crops like potatoes, quinoa, and mountain herbs. Ethelgard was designed to be a sanctuary that could sustain its people indefinitely, a kingdom completely independent from the world below. The people who lived in Ethelgard became known as the Sky Dwellers. They were a unique society shaped entirely by their extraordinary environment. Their lives were governed by the sun, the moon, and the stars. They were not warriors or merchants. They were thinkers, creators, and observers. Their community was built on the principles of collaboration and shared knowledge. Everyone had a role. Some were farmers, tending the high-altitude gardens. Others were builders, maintaining the castle's structures. Many were scholars, spending their days in the castle's great library and observatory, mapping the heavens. Their culture was deeply connected to their surroundings. They developed a unique form of art, carving intricate patterns into the castle's stone walls. These weren't just decorations. They were astronomical charts, calendars, and records of celestial events. They depicted constellations, planetary movements, and the phases of the moon. Their clothing was made from the wool of mountain llamas, which they kept in sheltered pens. The wool was dyed with vibrant colors made from lichens and plants found only at that altitude. Their society was a closed loop, a perfect example of living in harmony with a challenging environment. Children in Ethelgard grew up with a different perspective of the world. Their playground was a castle above the clouds. They learned from a young age to read the weather in the changing cloud formations. They learned the names of the stars before they learned the names of distant cities. Education was central to their way of life. Every child was taught to read, write, and understand basic astronomy. They were encouraged to ask questions, to explore, and to contribute their own ideas to the community's collective knowledge. They were raised to be guardians of the castle and its peaceful philosophy. Despite their isolation, they were not entirely cut off. Once every few years, a small, trusted party would make the difficult journey down the mountain. They would trade, not for gold or weapons, but for things they couldn't produce themselves, like salt, certain seeds, and rare medicinal plants. They would trade their finely woven textiles and detailed star charts. These traders were also gatherers of news. They brought back stories from the world below. These stories often reinforced their belief in the wisdom of their isolation. They heard tales of wars, famines, and plagues, which made them even more grateful for their peaceful sanctuary in the sky. Daily life in Ethelgard was quiet and ordered, dictated by the rhythms of nature. The day began when the sun's first rays struck the eastern towers. This was a signal for the community to gather in the main courtyard. They would share a simple breakfast of grain, porridge, and herbal tea. It was a time for calm reflection, for watching the sea of clouds below them shift and change color. There were no bells or clocks to mark the time. The position of the sun in the sky was their guide. The day was divided into periods for work, study, and rest, a pattern that had been followed for generations. Food was simple but nourishing. The Sky Dwellers were expert gardeners. In their sheltered terraces, they cultivated a surprising variety of crops. Potatoes were a staple, grown in many different colors and sizes. Quinoa, a protein-rich grain, formed the basis of many meals. They also grew hardy greens and root vegetables. Their diet was supplemented by llama milk and cheese. Food was cooked in communal kitchens, using dried llama dung as fuel, since trees were scarce at that altitude. Meal times were important social occasions. They were a chance for the community to come together, share stories, and strengthen their bonds. work was a shared responsibility. The farmers tended the crops, a constant battle against the thin soil and harsh sun. The herders took the llamas to graze on the sparse mountain grasses. The stonemasons and craftspeople spent their days maintaining the castle's structures and creating tools, pottery, and textiles. But the heart of Ethelgard was its great observatory. This was a tall, open-roofed tower filled with complex bronze instruments. Here, the astronomers worked day and night. They recorded their observations on thin sheets of beaten copper, creating an incredible library of celestial knowledge that grew with each passing year. As evening approached, the community would gather once more. As the sun set, it would paint the clouds below in spectacular shades of orange, pink, and purple. This was a time for storytelling and music. The elders would recount the history of their people, the story of King Alaric and his great vision. Musicians would play soft, haunting melodies on pipes made from hollowed reeds. It was a peaceful end to the day. As darkness fell and the stars appeared in the clear mountain sky, the people of Ethelgard would feel a profound sense of connection to the universe and to each other. Their life was hard, but it was also beautiful and full of meaning. Even in a life of quiet contemplation, there were times for celebration. The Sky Dwellers marked the passing of the seasons with great festivals. The most important of these were the solstices and equinoxes. The winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, was a time of hope. The entire castle would be lit with hundreds of tallow candles. The community would gather for a great feast, sharing the best of their stored foods. They would sing songs that spoke of the sun's return and the promise of longer days to come. The castle's design was aligned with these events. On the morning of the winter solstice, the rising sun would shine through a specific window, illuminating a carved symbol in the main hall. Music and storytelling were woven into the fabric of their lives. Without access to the outside world's entertainment, they created their own. They developed unique musical instruments. Flutes carved from condor bones produced high, ethereal notes that echoed through the stone halls. Drums with llama skin heads provided a deep, resonant beat. Their songs told stories of their history, of the stars, and of the natural world around them. Storytelling was a respected art form. The best storytellers could hold the entire community captivated for hours, spinning tales passed down through generations. These oral traditions were as important as their written records. Among their most fascinating stories were the legends of the cloud dragons. These were not fearsome, fire-breathing monsters. In the lore of the Sky Dwellers, cloud dragons were wise and gentle spirits of the air. They were said to be born from the clouds themselves. The people believed these dragons were the guardians of the mountain. They said you could sometimes see their shapes moving within the mists. A sudden swirl of cloud or a strange shadow cast upon the ground was seen as a sign of a dragon's passing. These tales taught respect for the powerful and unpredictable weather of their mountain home. Another important tradition was the rite of the sky gazer. When a young person came of age, they would spend 3 days and 3 nights alone in the highest turret of the observatory. They were given only water and a blanket. Their task was not to do anything but simply to watch. They would watch the sun cross the sky, the clouds swirl below, and the stars wheel overhead. It was a profound spiritual experience, designed to give them a deep appreciation for their place in the universe. It was a rite of passage that connected each new generation to the founding vision of King Alaric the Stargazer. For hundreds of years, the society of Ethelgard thrived in its splendid isolation. Generations were born, lived and died within the castle walls, knowing no other world. But no paradise, it seems, can last forever. The beginning of the end for Ethelgard was not a war or a disease. It was something far more subtle and insidious. It was a change in the climate. Over several decades, the weather patterns in the high Andes began to shift. The rains became less reliable. The dry seasons grew longer and harsher. The once dependable springs that fed their cisterns began to slow to a trickle. The impact on their food supply was catastrophic. The carefully cultivated terraces, which had fed the community for so long, began to fail. The soil dried out and turned to dust. The hardy mountain crops withered under the relentless sun. The sparse grasses that the llamas depended on for grazing disappeared. The herd began to shrink, and with it their supply of wool, milk, and meat. The sky dwellers were resourceful. They rationed their food and water. They dug deeper into the mountains, searching for new sources of water. But it was a losing battle against a force they could not control. The community faced a terrible choice. Desperation began to replace the peace and harmony that had defined their society. For the first time, there was hunger. There was fear. The elders held council after council, debating what to do. Some argued that they should remain, that this was a test of their faith, and that the rains would eventually return. They believed that leaving Ethelgard would be a betrayal of their ancestors and their entire way of life. They could not imagine living anywhere else. Their identity was tied to the castle and its place above the clouds. Ultimately, the pragmatists won the argument. The leader at the time, a wise woman named Ilara, made the heartbreaking decision. She argued that the dream of Ethelgard was not about the stone castle itself, but about the survival and wisdom of its people. To stay and perish would be the ultimate failure. The only logical choice was to leave, to lead their people down from the mountain and find a new home in the world below. The plan was made for a gradual, organized departure. It was called the Great Fading, a slow emptying of the castle in the sky. It was the end of an era. The decision to abandon Ethelgard was not made lightly. It was the end of a way of life that had lasted for nearly 500 years. The departure was meticulously planned. They couldn't take everything with them. They had to choose what was most precious. They decided to leave the heavy bronze astronomical instruments behind, but they took their knowledge. They carefully packed the thin copper sheets that held their celestial records. They took their most important books, their seeds, and the tools they would need to start a new life. It was a solemn and sorrowful process. The descent was done in stages. Small groups led by the strongest and most able-bodied went first. They scouted a path down the treacherous mountainside. They established a camp in a sheltered valley below. Then they began to lead the rest of the community down. The journey was perilous. These were people who had spent their entire lives at a high altitude. The thicker air of the lowlands was strange to them. The world below the clouds was a riot of new colors, sounds, and smells. It was overwhelming and frightening. They were strangers in their own world. The sky dwellers did not simply vanish. They integrated into the small, scattered communities of the lower valleys. It was a difficult transition. They were seen as outsiders with strange customs and a strange accent. But they had valuable skills to offer. Their knowledge of agriculture, stonemasonry, and astronomy was far advanced. They shared their seeds and their building techniques. Over time, they intermarried with the local populations. Their unique identity as sky dwellers slowly faded, absorbed into the wider culture of the region. Their story became a legend, a half-remembered tale of ancestors who came down from the sky. Before the last group left Ethelgard, they performed a final ceremony. They gathered in the main courtyard one last time. They sealed the great library and the observatory. They left offerings in the temple, asking the spirits of the mountain to guard the castle until perhaps a time when their descendants might return. As they took their final look at the towers against the blue sky, they felt a profound sense of loss. They were leaving behind not just a home, but a dream. The great gates of Ethelgard were closed, and the castle was left to the silence, the wind, and the clouds. For centuries, Ethelgard remained a ghost, a myth. But the legends persisted in the valleys below, stories of a stone city in the clouds. In the early 20th century, a determined archaeologist named Dr. Aris Thorne became obsessed with these stories. He spent years interviewing elders and piecing together the fragmented tales. Finally, with a small team and local guides, he undertook the treacherous climb. When his team finally broke through the cloud cover and saw the castle for the first time, the archaeological world was stunned. The myth was real. What we found inside has rewritten our understanding of the region's history. The preservation was unbelievable. The dry, thin air and the isolation had kept the castle in a remarkable state. It was a time capsule. One of our first major discoveries was the Great Library. The room was sealed, and inside we found racks of thin copper plates. They were covered in the elegant, flowing script of the Sky Dwellers. When we began to translate them, we realized we were looking at centuries of detailed astronomical observations. They had charted stars that are not visible to the naked eye. They had accurately predicted eclipses. Their understanding of the cosmos was centuries ahead of its time. In the kitchens and storerooms, we found more personal items. We discovered pottery, simple and functional. We found woven baskets and the remains of their clothing. In the deep, cool cisterns, we found preserved seeds. Genetic analysis of these seeds has been incredible. We have been able to identify several varieties of potato and quinoa that were thought to be extinct. Agricultural scientists are now working to cultivate these ancient crops once again. These discoveries give us a tangible link to the everyday lives of the people who lived here. It helps us understand them not as legends, but as real people. Perhaps the most poignant discovery was in one of the smaller residential chambers. Tucked away in a carved niche in the wall, we found a small wooden doll, its llama wool dress still intact. It was clearly a child's toy left behind in the final hurried departure. It's a small, simple object, but it speaks volumes. It reminds us that this magnificent scientific sanctuary was also a home. It was a place where children played and families lived. It is these small human touches that truly bring the story of Ethelgard and the great fading to life for us today. Today, Ethelgard stands much as it has for the last few centuries, silent, empty, and breathtakingly beautiful. The dark volcanic stone is weathered by wind and time. Patches of bright green moss grow in the shaded corners, adding a touch of life to the ancient walls. The castle has not been restored or turned into a tourist attraction. Access remains incredibly difficult, a deliberate choice made by the authorities and the descendants of the Sky Dwellers who still live in the valleys. They wish for the castle to remain a place of peace and respect, not a crowded spectacle. It is a monument, not a theme park. Visiting Ethelgard is a profound experience. The silence is the first thing you notice. It's a deep, ringing silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the stone archways. Standing in the central courtyard, you look out over an endless expanse of white clouds. It feels like you are standing on the edge of the world. The sun at this altitude is incredibly bright, and the sky is a shade of deep, dark blue you will never see at sea level. There is a palpable sense of history here, a feeling that the stones themselves are watching you, holding the memories of the people who lived among them. Archaeological work continues, but it is slow and careful. Small teams of researchers are allowed to visit for short periods. They continue to study the carved walls, translate the copper plates, and gently excavate new areas. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of the Sky Dwellers. We are learning more about their language, their beliefs, and their incredible scientific achievements. The castle is treated with the utmost care. The goal is not to take from it, but to learn from it, to listen to the whispers from the stones and understand the story they have to tell. Ethelgard remains a guardian of the sky. It is a testament to a remarkable vision, a community that chose to turn its back on the world in pursuit of knowledge and peace. It is also a cautionary tale. a reminder that even the most ingenious societies are vulnerable to the forces of nature and climate change. As the sun sets and the clouds below turn to fire, the towers of Ethelgard become black silhouettes against the dying light. It is a place of mystery, of beauty, and of enduring power. A castle above the clouds, lost to time but never truly forgotten.